A growing series at a growing racetrack in terms of popularity here in the United States. We saw Barber Motorsports Park thrown onto the IndyCar schedule in real life, slowly approaching 10 years ago. And while the real world NTC IndyCar qualifying session hits the track right now, we will be bringing you the second round of the SimLab Pro Cup here on RaceSpotTV. ProMods is here around this amazing circuit in Birmingham, Alabama. We will be with you in just a couple moments. Do not go away. The eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series returns on the 10th of April, this coming Tuesday, from the iconic Richmond Raceway. 200 laps around that short track. But first things first, we have some open wheel action to bring you with the SimLab Racing Simulator Products Pro Cup. I'm Randy Chinnis. I'll be bringing you all of the coverage that we have tonight. Qualifying just getting itself underway. A single 10-minute session. Drivers will have 4 solo laps to put in their own lap times. We'll pull up the drivers' names on the left-hand side, so as hot laps start rolling in, we will see live who is where. Currently looking at Udella Putzkila as he works his way through the last 2 sectors of the racetrack. So difficult. This sector, he's going to now come off that final corner and down this short chute here at this Barber racetrack. He's actually starting his opening hot lap here. Let's actually take this opportunity. Actually, no, that was the end of his opening hot lap, excuse me. So he's currently quickest at a 1:16.747, but he's also the only one currently to put in a timed lap. John Mushinson, John Morgan, and Ollie Rotkin, they all follow suit, but everyone right now slower than the 6.66 of oldest Putzkila. So let's kind of take a quick look, though, at our championship standings coming into this round. First round of this championship was held just a couple of weeks back at Watkins Glen, and here you can see the points. Typical point structure and sort of fan out following a first race. Harley Lewis 7 points ahead of oldest, who we have currently now second quickest in the qualifying, is Daniel Fletcher. Alcim by nearly a full 0.4 of a second. John Michael Nguyen, Martin Arnoldus, and Henry Robert round out that top 5. So qualifying now comfortably underway. We have about half the field that has put laps in. Let's ride on board a little bit here with oldest around this such a technical racetrack here at Barber. It was very controversial when this track was brought onto the IndyCar schedule about 10 years ago, but really ever since it's been very, very popular, I think, among fans and drivers, and it's been very well received. So as you head down in towards turn number 1, very fast left-hander, maybe a flick down on the gears, but as we bring the track map up, oldest is going to throw that hot lap away. So maybe a little bit of commentator's curse there. Oldest did improve on his second lap, but he did not improve his overall lap time. Let's see what Erwin can do. Erwin Vandenberg, see if he can potentially improve on his first outing here. Actually, this is his second lap, but he's not yet gotten a lap down and in. We'll see, maybe we can get ourselves a guided lap with him as he works his way around the racetrack. He's actually going to come across start finish for the tail of that lap. He does improve, and he will go 9th quickest, and he will pull that car off of the racing surface. Azara Streeter now on the racetrack in this 07 Hello Kitty machine. I now see why Mrs. Rachel Whiteford was in the chat supporting that car. Henry Robert on track right now, currently 5th fastest. I'm trying to get you guys a guided lap, but no one wants to put one in. Let's see what we can get cresting the hill here. Corners here at the bottom of the hill, so difficult. Gonna be braking right around the 2. Actually, maybe even later than that. I need to get good. Such a difficult hairpin as well to get right. So many undulations through that left-hander. It's like a quintuple apex, it almost feels like, the way you almost clip the curves. And now down through this corkscrew section. Back in the Grand Am races back in the day, there was a scary crash of a car getting stuck in the grass nose first through that sector of the racetrack so quick. And now really the first of the 2 sort of high-speed chicanes that you have on this circuit. This first one relatively easy. You're going to be pretty much flat out. And because it's so level, so to speak, it's really, really simple. This one in comparison, hard drop down to the left, and then the track rises with you as you apex through that second right-hander. This is exactly what you have to worry about, pushing off the track there. Really is a circuit here, Barber, that you really need the full demand of the aerodynamics of the cars. So it's currently with 4 minutes left in the qualifying. Daniel Fletcher, who leads the way by about 0.3 of a second over Oldest. So a fantastic qualifying result from the driver of that number 12 car. He's actually on his final hot lap now. Just keep an eye on what exactly Oldest is up to. So down the corkscrew he will run. And now just pushing a little bit wide. Maybe gets the left tires on the grass a little bit there as Pete Tinkler upgrades himself to the 9th position. 1.4 seconds currently off your pole sitter, but through this left and right hander. And down in towards this big left-right. S is so fast, so much load on the car through here. It's a very aero-dependent circuit. Doesn't push wide, does Daniel. Now in towards the final sector. And this sector mighty difficult as well, trying to keep the rear traction through that long right-hander, getting the car back over to the right-hand side, and then sweeping it back over to the left. Let's see, does Daniel improve on his 16.230? He will come through at a 16.112, so he does improve. He will go from pole position to pole position. So no positions gained, of course, but bragging rights, of course, when it comes to the lap time, ever in effect. Martin Arnoldus currently on the racetrack. He does not yet have a lap time, and he will only likely get 1, if not 2 opportunities at one, starting with this lap that he's about to be reining in right here. So Martin's going to come off this final corner, as you see where the cars we have on track all are located. So Martin is going to come across now, and he will bump himself. Actually, he's starting a hot lap, so in through turn 1. Quick flick to the right, maybe down a gear, and then down a couple for this long right-hander. Now up the hill and through this fast right-hand kink. Going to be pretty much glued to the track through there in these cars. I've run the V8 supercars here before. They can be, let's just say, a handful. Down through this hairpin once again. One of the prime passing opportunities on this racetrack. Very awkward kind of track out point as you work yourself to the right-hand side of the racing surface, and then you'll be all the way back over to the left down here once again. Smacking the curves all the way through here. Maybe a little bit too much on the left-hand side. Came very close, I think, to gathering himself up a 1X. Let's actually see what Martin can do as he works his way through here. Very nicely held through there. Then 18.733 through the first sector. 34.867 through the second. Third sector and final one coming up. And this is, I think, the most difficult one on the circuit because of this long right-hander right here. It looks like 2 different corners, but you really have to tie them together. Martin's just tight, or excuse me, wide through that final part of that right-hander. Through the left-hander, he looks good, though. Let's see what he can go to on this trip around the race circuit. 16s is currently what are fast, and Martin goes to a 16.8, about 7/10 off of the fastest time right now. But does he have enough time to put in the final qualifying lap? I don't think so. Don't see too many other cars on the racetrack currently running qualifying times. Bob Kern is putting in his third and what should be final qualifying time based on the amount of time left in the session. First one doesn't have him in great positions. 118.7, currently 18 of 18 cars that have run qualifying times thus far, but let's see if Bob can improve. Comes off the final corner. He's going to scream on down towards the front straightaway. And does he find time? Yes, he does. Goes to a 4.77. Doesn't improve his actual position, but that's still 3/10 and will get him sort of closer to the rest of his competition as Bob Oh, big slide through corner number 2 there, and that's pretty much going to kill that lap. Alan Jolly still out there on the racetrack, currently P10 with 10 seconds left in the session. So, as the timer counts down on this qualifying, drivers will get rudely removed from their rides, and we get ready to take the grid. The race tonight, 20 laps coming at you with these little Formula Mazdas. Very, very fun cars to watch, very fun cars to drive. It's a rolling start here around Barber, so we will take our time getting through the starting grid. No reason to rush it. And that's actually one of the unique things about this series. A lot of these feeder series cars, you know, the likes of the Formula 2, the Formula 3, you know, the Formula Renaults, both of them. A lot of these people, and of course the Pro Mazdas, many of the drivers used to standing starts. However, in the real world, and the goal of this series is to mimic the real world, they follow the same schedule, and they use very similar rule sets. That means that for these guys, they get to start behind a safety car, which is, as you're seeing right now, them getting themselves geared up to go for a little bit of racing today. It's always been an iconic racetrack, and as the entire field starts getting itself geared up, let's actually go down your starting grid for the second round of the SimLab Pro Cup. On pole, as we said, is Daniel Fletcher. Did himself a quick time of 1:16.112. Oldest Putiklis, a name I am going to butcher pretty much all night, puts himself second, just 0.3 of a second back. Second row, Harley Lewis and Jan-Michael Noyon, Canadian and a Frenchman on that second row, with John McCutcheon and Martin Arnoldus on row number 3. Variety of nationalities through the first 3 rows. Henry Robert and John Morgan on row number 4. Pete Tinkler and Alan Jolly on row 5. Carl Crowley and Fabio Berchtold on row number 6. Erwin Vandenberg and Scott Kirchner on row 7. Mark Barron and Ollie Rockin on row number 8. With Zara Streeter and Bob Kern on row 9. And Kari Pekka Vichitari, it did not actually set a lap time, as the field will begin to roll off. So, behind the Porsche safety car, they will all gather as the drivers now go out for their observation lap and their pace lap of the race circuit. It's actually been an interesting thing with these guys. It was a very long practice session. The server actually went up basically 12 hours ago. It was an 11-hour and 10-minute practice before that 10-minute qualifying. And the track conditions carried over from that practice into the qualifying, and from that qualifying into the race. So it's a very rubbered-in circuit for these guys. Handful of these drivers did north of 100 laps during that practice. As Daniel Fletcher leads the field, everyone is going to now, this may be the first time they've really gotten a chance to race with one another. Passing in these cars is going to be at a premium. Barber is traditionally a track that's very hard to pass out. Really only a couple of good passing opportunities. The best one, of course, coming down the hill, sort of through that infield section into that downhill braking zone of the hairpin. That's really your best bet to make a move on the race cars around here at Barber. And especially here in these Formula Mazdas, we see their big brothers in the Indy cars when they race around here. Those cars have push to pass. They get an extra bit of horsepower, extra bit of RPM. These cars do not. They have to do it the old-fashioned way, with a little bit of slipstream and a little bit of, let's just say, creative maneuvering to work themselves past and around their competition. So we look on board with your pole setter of Daniel Fletcher. Now in towards this final sector, where he will be being put in command of the field in just a couple of moments. Pit entry on the left-hand side there. Through this final right-hander and in towards the final left. The 12 car on the right hand of your screen. The white and lime green. He's going to pick it up early. And Daniel Fletcher leads us to green. 20 laps around Barber Motorsports Park. Starts right now. It's a good start for your top 2. First side-by-side, a little bit deep in the field here. It's through turn number 1. Everyone's going to be okay. It was Martin Arnoldus actually involved with that little fight, fighting with John McCutcheon. McCutcheon, who holds on to his 5th position. Whole field through turns number 1 and 2. Zara Streeter not getting a great start. Looks like she goes to the back of the field, but everyone clean through turn number 1 and 2, through 3 and 4 now at this hairpin. So difficult. Oldest doing everything he can to not let Fletcher get away. Down the hill now, riding on board. This is one of those points on the racetrack where you can close and where you're going to want to start working the slipstream. Like we said, a lot of aerodynamics going to be on these cars at Barber. So because of that, you're going to be punching a big hole through the air. That's what Oldest is trying to take advantage of. He pulls right up to the back of Daniel Fletcher, but nothing going just yet through this left-right chicane. Chicane S's, I'm not really sure how to describe it. It's fast and scary regardless, but our first lap around Barber Motorsports Park was a clean one. Don't see any cars off anywhere. So everything looking good up and down the field at the moment. Carl Crowley involved in a little bit of fight. 4-car pulls out of line. That's Harley Lewis. He's just doing a little bit of mere harassment to the drivers out there in front of him. So after the first lap, actually everything pretty much remains about line astern. The only pass we had for position was Bob Kern on Azara Streeter. Everyone else runs in the order they started. Running down now back towards the court stroop. Really turns number 7 and 8 down here. Oh, you see that 4-car, little bit of a wobble going through there, as well as our race leader as well, Daniel Fletcher. That's going to allow Oldest to take the lead. What happened to Daniel? Going to wait and make sure they get through turn 8 all in order. And now what happened to Daniel Fletcher? Talking about the intricacies of this circuit and how difficult it can be. Daniel on the brakes down in towards turn 7. What did he do? I think it was just a little bit too much curb on the right hand or left hand side. And that's exactly what it was. He just rolls that car over the curb, gets a big bite of oversteer, and has to bring that car back underneath them. So he's going to lose a ton of spots. The 69 ahead of him, of John McCutcheon. He wants to get aggressive and make up some spots. I believe that's the 111. He's attempting to chase down. Harley Lewis a little bit off the racetrack through turn 1. Did a good job bringing that back underneath them. But now it's Oldest Puchkelis who leads. Harley Lewis in second. John Michael Noyon in that third spot. John McCutcheon runs 4th, and Martin Arnoldus rounds out your top 5. And Daniel Fletcher, he immediately goes back to work picking up spots. He's going to make it nearly 3 cars down here through the hairpin. Great driving from the driver of that 12 car. And let's see, this is the part of the racetrack where he made the mistake earlier. This time I doubt he'll make it again. And yes, 3rd time through he's clean, but how did he manage that going through the middle part of the circuit? Another look on board here with Daniel, and just watching me see all 3 of those cars out in front of him. May have been 2 cars in one corner rather than 3, but he gets the run on the 2 cars out ahead, just pulls over to the left hand side, and it's a beautiful out braking maneuver there from Daniel to pick up 2 spots on the recovery after making that mistake. So through now on lap number 3, it's going to be Oldest who leads this race by just a few tenths of a second over Harley Lewis. Actually, take that back. Gap actually is down to about half a second, so maybe a mistake from Oldest, because Harley did rail in nearly 4 tenths of a second that last time by. Then it's the 111 of John Michael Noyon. Daniel Fletcher has himself already back in the top 4. He went from outside of the top 5 to into the top 4 on that first lap. McCutcheon and Arnoldus, they're going to be fighting once again. Henry Robert also tagging the tail end of this fight, as Arnoldus is going to get the move down there through turns number 5 and through the left-hander at 6 to move Arnoldus up a position. But those two have been glued together through these first 4 laps. Look for them to stay glued together and potentially keep this up. Down now, once again, you see drivers very aggressive over the curbing. We've seen that already catch out. Of course, your race leader. So through again, turns 11 and 12. I hear someone fighting a little bit of oversteer, I think. I don't see anyone off, but it may have been Oldest Puchkelis just getting a big slide through that sort of final sequence of corners. As they work through the final corner, as you can see, Lewis so close there as he runs down this front straightaway, going to be working the draft. See him just harassing the mirrors. We've seen that 4 car already now a handful of times dip in and out of the rear view mirrors of Oldest out in front of him in the Kinetic Racing car. Up the hill following turn 2 and turn 3 through 4. This is technically turn 5 down here. Of course, this racetrack has the Americanized numbering system, which means some corners are numbered that don't look like they should be, and others are not numbered that look like they should be. And the vice versa of those. So down once again for Harley Lewis. No move coming in just yet on Oldest. We saw Oldest actually get a good run on Fletcher coming out of this corner. It may be that that 666 car is running the car a little bit more trimmed out in order to make passes. I know that's a strategy you'll often see in IndyCar. A lot of times what the teams will do is the fastest way to actually get the car around the racetrack is with a bunch of aero, but when it comes to the actual racing, they will actually trim the cars out to make it easier for their drivers to pass cars and more difficult for drivers to pass their drivers. If that makes sense. Through the final, I don't think I explained that right. Basically, they trim the cars out so it's fast in a straight line, so you don't get slipstreamed on. I know that they do that a lot at Long Beach with the long straightaways. Top 6. All in one camera shot, though, as they work themselves down the front straight and in towards turn 1 once again. Daniel Fletcher's now all over the back of that 111 of Jean-Michel Nouillon. He wants to get himself back up on the podium. We saw him absolutely dominant qualifying. The static shot as they come up and over the hill. And now back down the hill. Daniel's going to pull out to the left-hand side while the 4 of Harley Lewis is dealing with the 111 and Jean-Michel Nouillon. Can Fletcher make something of this as they roll once again down towards the corkscrew? 111 out in front, harassing the 4 still. Jean-Michel not finding an open gap just yet, but it's not from a lack of trying. And Daniel Fletcher, he really needs that car in front of him to be able to catch up to Harley Lewis and make something of this. Through now 11 and 12. Up the hill, little right-hand kink at 13, 14 right here, and then turns 15, 14A, and then 15. So you see cars fanning out all over the place. Let's ride a lap on board with Daniel Fletcher. You see the way the cars out in front of him are really fighting with one another. It's just basically a long train of this lead pack. No one really been able to break away inside of your top 6. Through turns 2 and 3, the long right-hander up and over the hill at turn 4. And then right back down the hill at turn 5. Lewis goes defensive here in towards turn 5 at the braking zone. Around the outside goes the 111 of Nouillon, but he can't make that stick. It's a little bit deep. All over the curb on the right-hand side. Does he have enough overlap to actually make something of this down in towards the corkscrew? They're going to be wheel to wheel. It's a sketchy place to try to make a pass, but Nouillon, there's going to be contact. He gets spun around, and the 4 car of Harley Lewis, he's going to lose out on a spot in this as well. We'll get a replay when this eventually settles out. Martin Arnoldas wants to take advantage, but he will not be able to do so. So Daniel Fletcher once again picks up a couple spots. As who is that off in the background? I think that was the 69 machine. Indeed it was. Fighting with the 4 of Harley Lewis. So in the blink of an eye, Daniel Fletcher goes from 4th back up to that 2nd spot. Replay coming up on screen now of what exactly happened to Mr. Nouillon. So down the hill here in towards this corkscrew, you see him on the left-hand side of your screen, right-hand side of the track, and just a little bit of overlap there. It wasn't a hard touch for Jean-Michel, but it's just enough. We're going to rewind the cameras once again. I want to get an onboard shot from the gearbox. Show you exactly how close this incident was. You can hear the car on the right-hand side of your screen that he's trying to pick this spot up on. And then just right down the hill, you're going to see him just about get clear. And it wasn't much of an overlap, but it was just enough as he goes spinning around and into the grass. So what a recovery drive for this driver, though, of Daniel Fletcher. Started on the pole, makes a mistake, gets shuffled back to 6th or 7th, which oftentimes around here at Barber will be a death sentence. And inside the first half of the motor race, he's already back up into P2, only 1.1 seconds off Oldest. Keeping up with a handful of other drivers, this fight continues. Hello Kitty machine of Azara Streeter has worked her way up to that 14th position. It's well done by Azara. Currently trying to catch the number 44 car of Pete Tinkler. Team Bear Pope versus the car with Hello Kitty on it. So, little animal on animal action there as we got to go back to this fight for the race lead as Daniel Fletcher has already caught Oldest down in towards turn 6. Not making anything of it just yet, not quite close enough because of that spin out with the 111 car, just a handful of just this last trip around the racetrack, excuse me. You're seeing a bit of a breakaway now for your top 2. So through now, turns 7, 7A, and 7B, through turn 8. The fast left, right, and then in towards 9 and 10. Daniel right on that gearbox of that 666 car of Oldest. Where is he going to make the move? He's definitely quicker. Definitely has the speed. I think it has to do with the lime green wheels. He's going to get aggressive through the last sector of the racetrack, but no opening there. Cannot make that stick. As down the front straightaway they will go. Also, just a heads up to you guys watching, you know, many of you are friends with the drivers, maybe even be drivers themselves, maybe spotting for them. We have had an issue with our RaceSpot TeamSpeak that we currently use. We are on a slightly different TeamSpeak address for post-race interviews. The new address is now in the chat for the post-race. So the 12 car is Daniel Fletcher down in towards turns number 6 once again. Excuse me, turn 5, turn 6. Little left-hander. Where will the 12 car make the move? Arnoldus in the background trying to pick up the spot on John McCutcheon. And this time McCutcheon's going to lift out of it. I think he just seen what happened to Mr. Noyon as Harley Lewis actually has a little bit of a lockup through the center of that corner. So Daniel Fletcher all over this 666 machine. And out alongside, matter of fact, as he worked down here, I didn't notice the overlap. And oh, big mistake for the 12 car. Second one in the race somehow does not collect the 666 car. And now Daniel will fall right back down the order. Once again, maybe a little bit of over-aggression here for Daniel Fletcher trying to get back to that race lead. How exactly did this happen? So down in towards 7, 7A, and 7B once again. You see the lockup from Oldest. I missed that. This is what gave Daniel the run. So you head towards turns number 9 and 10. And he's going to pull over to the left-hand side. And I think he just drives it way too deep into the corner here. Matter of fact, he just gets the turn-in point wrong. And it's one of the difficult points of that corner. Get another kind of view of that on from the typical roll bar camera. As we go back to where they were coming out of the hairpin, but he just turns in way too early and basically drives the car halfway through the grass. That turn-in point, the apex is blind. It is very difficult to see. So off that corner of turn number 8, which is technically what it is at the bottom there, through 9 and 10, and in towards 11, you're going to see here, he just flat out misjudges the corner. There's really no reference point. And I think the moment he turns in, I think Daniel knew that the jig was pretty much up and there's no way that was going to stick. But at the same time, even though I think it's a place on the racetrack you can make a move, you almost have to kind of wonder, did you really need to? As actually Arnoldus very slow through the final sector in the 69 of McCutcheon. He's going to just about take advantage, but no, I see a little bit of damage on that Lotus Livery Pro Mazda. So maybe affecting the top speed just a little bit, but I have to wonder for Daniel. I mean, he made that move just past the halfway point of the race. Still plenty of time, in my opinion, to pick something up. I don't think he had to necessarily go for it there. Definitely better and safer spots on the racetrack to go for moves, but 666 car of Oldest, he's likely going to be somewhat irritated with that as well, because that means the 4 of Harley Lewis, because the 666 machine, we actually didn't see it. Of course, he had to check up for the spinning Daniel, which means that he had to lose a lot of time and just allowed Harley Lewis to reel him back in. Getting word that every viewer here is for Azara Streeter. I hope you're entertained. as this fight for the race lead is going to continue through now this difficult final sector once again in towards the final corner. Itself isn't difficult, but that long right-hander really is difficult to get right. Just about every car I've ever driven here through turn one, Harley Lewis trying to keep that fin out in front of him honest. See if we have any other close fights up and down the racetrack. I see the fight between Fabio Berthold and Henry Robert. They're relatively close. Matter of fact, Erwin Vandenberg just a few tenths out in front. So three cars all basically buried underneath the blanket here. Cars all over the place, and Berthold did not get a good run coming off of that hairpin. Maybe an opening for Henry Robert down here in towards this corkscrew section of the racetrack. He's got enough of an overlap. Can he actually nail the braking and turning points? Yes, he can. Move Henry Robert up into P number 8. So the 7 of Fabio falls behind, as actually he may lose 2 spots, because who is that trying to work his way through the wheel-to-wheel through the chicane? That's Alan Jolly. Jolly goes off the racetrack in that 064 car. Replay coming up of that sequence of events. My oh my, what a ride for the 064. Rewind the cameras back a little bit further. So you're going to see here with the side-by-side into this part of the racetrack, it's going to slow this kind of group up in front of Allen a lot. And look at the amount of time he's able to reel in on Berthold, and he just gets this awesome run. And this is sort of one of the traps to get yourself into. You can't really go side by side through here. He gets scared by that car on the left-hand side. He just makes that mistake. If he's lucky, he won't have any under-tray damage, but that's a pretty big if, I think, as this 3-car scrap is going to continue for 7th, 8th, and 9th on the racetrack. Race lead still close to 0.3 of a second, and Martin Arnoldis is getting involved in this fight as well. So Martin's found a little bit of late race speed 14 laps into this event. Can he make something of this? Maybe pick up the 2nd spot, even a cheeky win to the 4 of Harley Lewis. He wants the race lead, shows the nose down to the penultimate corner, is not able to pick it up. 6 laps to go at the line. 3 cars scrapping for the win here at Barber. Thinking of fanning out 3 abreast into 1 is Martin Arnoldis. Thinks better of it, which is an uncontroversial decision, I think. Let's do turns 2 and 3 up towards 4. He'll go once again. You see John McCutcheon also on the back. That 83 car is going to try to go around the outside of Harley Lewis. Nothing going there just yet, though. And this is working all over in the favor of the 666 car of Oldest. Just comfortably out in front of this field. Well, I won't say comfortably, but every time these two fight and scrap, and every time that 4 car has to go defensive, he knows that it's just buying him more and more space to the cars behind. Right underneath the rear wing now is Martin. Will he make something of this? Down towards this fast left and right. We saw Daniel make a mistake here on turn in. Martin doesn't make the same one, but he does get cycled right back into line in P number 3. John McCutcheon just watching in 4th. Through now off the final sequence of corners. Martin wants that 2nd spot, gets a run off that final corner. Can he make something of it? Down in towards turn 1. Martin gets a little bit loose, and that's actually going to take out the 4th place runner as well as McCutcheon. Martin just a little bit of oversteer, and that's going to cause huge drama as he falls back into now the recovering drivers of John Michael Noyon and Daniel Fletcher. Replay. And let's ride on board with McCutcheon, because he had really the front row seat to this whole incident, and of course got tangled up with it. So you're going to see Arnoldis try to run from the middle of the racetrack down to the turning point. You can do this, but it is difficult. And you just see Martin, just how quickly that happened out in front of McCutcheon. No way he could ever really hope to escape that. As now the 12 of Daniel Fletcher, we saw him charging earlier in this event, and now he has another rabbit out in front of him to chase. And it's pretty much going to open up. I believe that puts him 5th now on the racetrack. Should take that back. May not actually have improved his position at all. Actually, where did McCutcheon come out? Actually, in fact, it did. Race lead still close, though. And for Harley Lewis and oldest Puteklis, it's going to be, I think, 2 very differing opinions on that incident down at turn 1 there. Oldest is going to be hating the fact that we just saw that mistake through turn number 1, because that takes all the pressure off of Harley, and Harley's going to be loving it because it takes all the pressure off of him. Race lead, though, towards turn number 5 and 6. Harley still dicing in and out of the mirrors of oldest. Hashtag Zara update. She's up to P number 13. Currently dealing with Carl Crowley, who's all over the rear gearbox. And actually, she makes a little bit of a mistake going through turns 2 and 3. And King Crowley makes something of that nose. So holding on along the outside. But will they do so down into this next corner? Crowley thinking about diving deep onto the brakes here, into the hairpin. Going defensive is Azara. And Azara is going to hold on to the spot for now. Hasn't lost it just yet. So down towards this corkscrew section of the racetrack, the 88, I think, needed to take advantage of Azara's desire to go hyper defensive and try to pinch him down a little bit lower to the racetrack, but choosing not to do that. 3 laps to go, though, for your race leaders. Three laps and 3/10 for your race leaders, as Lewis still all over the back of oldest. Once again, the dart game continues for the 4 car as he darts in and out of the wake, coming off that rear wing. Fight for the race lead still heating up. You're seeing Harley, he's not being aggressive in the slipstream, just being very, very calm. I won't say he's being calm the way he's harassing the mirrors, but he's being so patient in how he's actually trying to fight for that. Daniel Fletcher's gotten himself back up to 3rd. So big moves coming here late in the race for him. Actually, I believe he may have picked that up as a result of the incident. Math is hard when you're from Southern California. TBH. 2 laps to go, though, for your top 2. Harley needs to quit darting out of the slipstream so early. Just needs to stay tucked in behind that rear wing of oldest, down in towards turn 1, attempting to do so, but no real gains being had. A little bit wide at the entry to the corner is oldest. You see Harley reels in because of it. Oldest actually wide at corner exit as well, so just a free about car length and a half here for the 4 car. So through turn 5 and turn 6. Oldest a little bit better through that end of the racetrack. Is now down towards the corkscrew. Harley needs to put this together absolutely perfectly to have any sort of hope of making this stick. In towards 9 and 10. And then towards 11 and 12. You can see Lewis, he's just losing ground over that 666 car. I don't think it's as good of a run off 7 and 8 for him. Oldest just seems really hooked up through there, and I think the slipstream playing a big, or excuse me, I think potentially aero settings playing a big factor in that as well. As a Hello Kitty machine. Actually may have made a mistake. Actually, no, I don't think so. I think that 888 just got around her. But regardless, white flag in the air for your race leaders, and Harley Lewis has been in the slipstream for about the last 10 laps. He's had nothing, been able to do nothing with it in that carbon racing machine. Already about a third of the way through, this final lap in the 4 car has made up no significant ground whatsoever through the hairpin for the final time, and the run down towards this corkscrew still hasn't reeled anything in just yet. You're gonna dart out back and forth just a little bit, trying to force a mistake anywhere that they can. Oldest, though, who's been picture perfect this entire race, is not making any. He's had Daniel Fletcher make a couple mistakes in front of him. He's held strong. He's had this 4 car hounding him absolutely everywhere on the racetrack, and now he should know that Harley Lewis is really out of passing opportunities, and Harley gets loose off that final hill, and that's going to take him pretty much out of contention. But for the 666 car, well, it's going to be the 12 who gets bumped up to second place on a phenomenal recovery drive, but Oldest puts in a masterful drive here, and he will win the second round of the SimLab Pro Cup here at Barber. So wonderful drive here from Oldest. Absolutely phenomenal. As you see the rest of your field on the left-hand side of your screen, Daniel Fletcher, Jean-Michael Noyon, Harley Lewis, John McCutcheon. As you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, our overlay doesn't know how to count. Harley Lewis is in the 5th spot officially, John McCutcheon in 6th. Let's see, any other cars still yet to cross the finish line. Azara Streeter just crossed. I think we have pretty much all of our cars that were really running for position. It's coming through already. So with that, let's take a quick peek at our post-race results. So after 20 laps of action, Oldest Putiklis comes away with the race win, with Daniel Fletcher in 2nd, Jean-Michael Noyon in 3rd, John McCutcheon in 4th, and Harley Lewis rounds out the top 5. Martin Arnold is 6th, Henry Robert 7th, Erwin Vandenberg in 8th, Fabio Berthold in 9th, and Alan Jolly rounds out your top 10, with Pete Tinkler in the 11th spot, John Morgan 12th, Carl Crowley in 13th. Azara Streeter likely would have won the fan boost if we had that, but also knowing that if she would have had the fan boost, probably would have lasted for 6 laps instead of 6 seconds. Then she would have just dominated everyone, and Bono House would have been really mad. Mark Barron in the 15th spot with Ollie Rockin, Scott Kirshner, Bob Kern, and Kari Pekka Vilchavari did not actually start the race today. Reminder to everybody who is associated with any of the drivers, if they want to come do some post-race stuff, this is our team speak for the night. Our regular server going through some maintenance. I've thrown it into the chat. Make sure they get word. We're going to go to a quick commercial break here on RaceSpotTV. Then we'll be right back for post-race coverage. Do not go away. An absolutely phenomenal second race here at Barber, and at the end of it, it was Oldest who took away the race victory here today, and we have him here standing by with us. Oldest, pretty much, I think, a perfect race for you. Started second, qualified well. You had Daniel out-qualify you and sort of start running away at the start of the race, but a couple mistakes from him pretty much guaranteed you the victory here today. Talk me through the race.
Well, I definitely knew Daniel is way faster than me, like 3/10 or something is definitely well. So I thought the key will be the consistency. You know, even I struggled as well in the first 2 laps. I nearly lost it. I went on the grass or something. Then once I didn't crash with Daniel, then it was like survival to the end. Yeah, Harley catch me as well later on, but he couldn't just pass. Just couldn't, you know. Yeah, that was, I think, the toughest race of the season, to be honest.
Well, I mean, there's only been 2, so...
Well, I mean, that was the toughest one that's coming as well.
Yeah, but talking about, I mean, this track, I know that for a lot of the European drivers, this is a circuit a lot of people really aren't, I think, used to if they don't run this Formula Mazda. I know it's really only famous for being on the Grand Am schedule a handful of years ago, and the fact that it's run in IndyCar. How difficult is it for, you guys coming from that European continent, having to come over and run a bunch of sort of, you know, these feeder series Formula Mazdas, having to run a bunch of these sort of tracks that a lot of you guys may not have been as exposed to, like here at Barber, you have Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, which I know a lot of people do actually like. You also have tracks like Mid-Ohio along the way. How is it trying to deal with these circuits that aren't as popular compared to the other North American circuits like, say, Montreal or COTA and etc.?
Well, I'm a big fan myself of IndyCar, so these tracks, I love these tracks. They are interesting to drive. They are really tough because to be fast you have to go on a limit, and the limit is so small here. One mistake and that's it, you're finished. So yeah, I kind of like these tracks. The turns are really tough because they're like off camber and something like that, in elevations and all the stuff. But yeah, really interesting.
And now the next round will be in a couple of weeks' time on April the 20th. That will be at Road Atlanta. Road Atlanta, of course, one of the most well-known and famous racing circuits in North America, home of the Petit Le Mans. And very difficult racetrack because, one, to set the cars up for, because you need all that aero to be able to screen through turn 1 and the S's, but you need to have the top speed to also get yourself down the straightaway in towards that chicane. How does really approaching that track go? Do you think you're going to go pretty much optimizing the car for speed or for downforce?
Should be for speed, because there's one long straight and that's what counts really, you know. In those turns, those wiggly turns, you just have to follow basically if you can pass on a straight. So yeah, I like the track. I love it, so I can't wait.
Well, thanks for joining us, Oldest, and congratulations on pretty much a picture-perfect drive from your end. Before we let you go, who gets it done for that Kinetic Racing car?
Yeah, definitely thanks to Kinetic Racing for help and basically for accepting me in the team, because I'm a newbie in there. So yeah, thanks to great for paint as well, and to Martin Ordnodus for this league. I love it. I love the idea that follows the real life schedule. Yeah, brilliant.
Well, there he was, your race winner of the event this afternoon, Oldest Putekelis. Doesn't lead every single lap, but he led pretty much the entire second half of that race. And well, that's pretty much going to do it for us here on RaceSpotTV, as I made the fatal mistake of hitting both of my music hotkeys at once. So instead of just queuing one song, I triggered both of them. Huge shout outs to everyone that makes these broadcasts possible. Of course, we got to start it out with everyone associated with the SimLab Pro Cup. I love seeing these Formula Mazda cars, and I love being able to cover these sort of American style series, sort of the series I would have seen growing up as a kid. It's great seeing these tracks rather than just the same Euro circuits over and over. So huge thank you for everyone who's put in and helped organize these series. Martin Arnoldus, I believe, is the one behind the scenes most of the time. Huge shout outs to myself for the commentary and also myself for running the cameras today. Istvan Ballo actually put the camera packs together that we use. Check him out at trackcams22.com. Andy Werner, he's the one responsible for the beautiful graphics that you see. while Simon Grossman did put all the ones and zeros in order to make them work. And then finally, Nick Tisson for our live timing that we tend to work for our larger events. RaceSpotTV will be back tomorrow night for the Norwegian Sim Cup, or the Norwegian series, running the Porsches. Vincent will be running the cameras with the Norwegian commentary there. On Monday, the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Drink Sprint Car World Championship Series returns for their third race at Limaland, and the eNASCAR Peak Antifreeze iRacing Series picks up on Tuesday night. And then on Saturday, it's the Porsche Super Cup World Championship round number 1 coming this weekend. So the next 7 days, very, very busy here on RaceSpotTV. But until all of those, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.